It's the Metro on WDET. I'm Tia Graham. For a lot of moms, the months after giving birth can be a roller coaster of emotion. The joys of bringing a new child into the world are paired with 24/7 responsibilities of care and feeding. Feelings being overwhelmed and changes to a mom's body and mind are a normal part of the postpartum period. Without the necessary support and resources, moms can feel all alone in their caregiving duties, and postpartum depression is common. But a new program is finding success in reducing negative complications during the postpartum period. The Reach Out, Stay Strong Essentials Program, or ROSE, is a program that aims to provide pregnant people with the skills and information they need to have better outcomes after giving birth. Dr. Jennifer E. Johnson is a professor of obstetrics and gynecology and behavioral health at Michigan State University. She's the chair of the Charles Stewart Mott Department of Public Health there, and she is also the lead researcher for the ROSE program. And we're taking your calls. For the moms listening right now, how was your mental health in the months after giving birth? What kind of supports did you need most to get through this toughest times? Join the conversation. The number is 313-577-1019. But I want to welcome Dr. Johnson to the Metro. Welcome, Dr. Johnson.
Thanks so much for having me.
Of course. So jumping in so people kind of have a base for what's going on, what is the postpartum period?
So the postpartum period is the few months extending up to a year after a baby is born.
And what are the different stages of the postpartum period?
I think there are different stages. At first, you're simply reeling and recovering from the delivery. Then you start to settle in. Although most mental health problems happen pretty soon after birth, they can happen throughout that first year.
Okay, so what are the signs of postpartum depression? Is it to be expected for most women after giving birth?
Yeah, so there's something called baby blues, which isn't depression and is more normal. Baby blues is crying over commercials, being more emotional than usual, feeling teary. That typically should go away within a week or two. But, if after a week, if at any point someone's having thoughts about suicide, they should reach out to someone right away. Or if, they feel no interest or pleasure in anything, if they're eating a lot or not at all, your sleep is obviously disrupted, but if they're having trouble sleeping, feeling guilty, worthless, all of those are signs of something more serious.
Yeah, and why isn't this information more widely known? Do you contribute it or associate it with a lack of funding or lack of research?
I think that there is, especially recently, a decent amount of research on postpartum depression. I think part of the reason is that mental health stigma. People don't want to think about being depressed, or they feel like if they might be having mental health symptoms, something's wrong with them. I think that there's a societal expectation that you just had a baby, you should be ecstatic, and it's possible to, and yet I would say it's possible to both really love your child and be really, really struggling.
And we are going to get back to just talking a little bit about those expectations versus reality a little bit later on. But I do want to bring in Rose to the conversation and talk a little bit about that program, if we can, and talk about how you're working using research to help you kind of combat postpartum related depression and complications. So it was founded in 2010. What were some of the early plans when Rose was being planned and structured? What was going through your mind when you were trying to put this together?
Yeah, well, it was actually my colleague Karen Zlotnick who created Rose. I've worked with her on the research, but her thought was, and it makes a lot of sense, that it's about 1 in 7 moms will have postpartum depression.
Wow.
It's 1 in 3 or 4 moms who are on Medicaid, which is 42% of the births nationally. Because if you're stressed, and have other things going on, poverty, that can also trigger depression. And yet those moms are the most likely to have trouble, to not be identified and to not be well connected to care. So the thought was, identifying and treating something is good, but if we could prevent it, that's even better. So she took principles of one of the best supported treatments for postpartum depression called interpersonal psychotherapy and created, basically, it's 4 classes during pregnancy. It's intentionally not treatment because to try to get around mental health stigma. It's just simply, here's some skills, here's some things that might help you. And it's in multiple studies been found to prevent half of cases of postpartum depression. So just these 4 classes during pregnancy prevents half of cases, that half of women who would have otherwise had postpartum depression.
And what are some of the things that are taught in the classes, the courses? Like, what are people learning that is really reducing the amount of postpartum depression?
Yeah, sure. So first we start off with what you asked about, which is, the difference between baby blues and postpartum depression, and something that people should be more concerned about. It starts with this idea that you don't have to try to be a hero. This is a time that you're just going to need more help than you usually do.
Mm.
Um, and so looking at, who in your life um, could be supportive. If, some of your partner, other people around you aren't particularly supportive, is there anyone who could be supportive? Or then we have moms practice um, just making requests, simple things, um, but how to make a request without being so indirect nobody knows what you're asking, or waiting till you're at the end of your rope and you're yelling by the time you do it.
Yeah.
And then putting some plans in place with you and the people around you for what help you might need, and and the practice, having that person respond to requests. And it sounds really simple, and in a way it is simple, but it's really powerful. And I like to tell people, the difference between my second child and my first is, with my second, I wasn't embarrassed to ask a neighbor to babysit so I could take a nap.
Wow.
It's just those sort of things. You don't have to try to do it all yourself.
And just listening to you and just listening to the way that you're talking about moms asking for help, how does that request sound exactly if a mom is at that point where I'm at the they're at that breaking point and they just don't know how to use those words? How do you kind of coach moms through that?
Yeah, so we do a lot of role playing, a lot of practicing, but it's, if you have time ahead of time, you can find a good place and time. You may not have that. So it sounds like, hey, I need you to take the baby for an hour while I take a nap. Or, hey, could you do that? Versus, I'm really tired. I'm not sure. I haven't, right? That's too indirect. Or like I said, if you're absolutely the end of your rope, also not good is that you never help me. I don't even know why I had a baby with you, right? That's not particularly
Yeah.
helpful. Versus just simply directly asking for what you need.
Yeah, the not the pointing the fingers in the blame game, just making sure that you are respecting those around you and trying to find that support. Dr. Johnson, when we're talking about those partners and looking for support, in what ways are you all using Rose to speak with the partners or fathers while addressing postpartum depression in new moms?
Yeah, fathers are or partners are just such a huge part of this. And I think part of what Rose does, right, is help mom talk with partner during pregnancy to say and start setting expectations about what's going to need to happen. Um, and I think, while Rose, like I said, it was meant to be light touch, directly intervenes with the moms, I think there's a lot that can and should be done with dads. And a lot of what we do with moms is, like I said, helping her talk to the people around her in a way to set expectations and be able to get the things that she needs.
And do you all call recent births from moms new moms? Like, are all new births new moms or considered new moms?
Yes.
Oh, wow. So does that title change once a woman, or does it change the way that you are putting women through the Rose program, or is it just all the same for all women experiencing new births?
It's all the same for all women, because what happens with one birth may be completely different with another, depending on the pregnancy and your life and your age and what's going on around you.
Yeah. Mm.
And if I can go back a minute to the partners,
Please, please.
I would say that if we have any partners of people who are pregnant out there listening, ask your partner what they need. Make sure that she gets enough sleep. Make sure that she gets healthy food. Um, it really is demanding. They compare pregnancy to, constantly walking up a flight of stairs. It's a lot, and so, your job is to make sure that she can physically and emotionally get through what she needs to get through over the next several months.
And Dr. Johnson, this is just, personally for myself, I have not had any children or anything like that, but just listening to this information, it kind of, number one, it helps you feel informed, but it also can be a little daunting and a little scary. Mm-hmm. So how do you talk about the important things that women should know, especially women who may be looking to have children one day or expecting moms, without getting overwhelmed with the information?
Well, by the time we get them, they're pregnant. So in a way, it's too late.
Yeah.
There's not much, I would say, if I was talking to somebody else, I would say that it is like a lot of things that are important. It is really hard. Like, going to college can be hard. Getting your first job can be hard. Running a marathon can be hard. But a lot of the hard things are really worth it. And of course, it's everyone's choice, but, I would 100% trade those very, very, very difficult, some of the most difficult months of my life, honestly, for almost adult kids now who are like some of my best friends.
Yeah. Dr. Johnson, I love hearing you say that. My parents are like some of my best friends as well. So that's just something very special to hear you say on the air. But this is the Metro. I'm Tia Graham. We're talking about the challenges postpartum moms face and a program out of Michigan State University that is helping moms reduce the risk of postpartum depression. My guest is Dr. Jennifer E. Johnson. She's a professor of obstetrics and gynecology and behavioral health at Michigan State University. She is also the lead researcher for the Rose program. And we're taking your calls for the moms listening, partners as well. How was your mental health in the months after giving birth? How did you help support your partner as well? And what kinds of supports did you need most as a mom to get through these toughest times? That number is 313-577-1019. Now, we are going to go to the phone lines. Let's go to Peter in Detroit. Peter, what are your thoughts on postpartum care for moms?
Well, I called because you were talking about partner support. I am and was Michigan's first African-American male certified lactation counselor. I teach men about breastfeeding, why it's important, and how to be the best support mechanism for their partners, and to encourage breastfeeding because it is the best food their child is ever going to have for the rest of their life. One of the things that breastfeeding also does is increase oxytocin, which is the love hormone, for their partner, and it helps to decrease postpartum depression along with his support. So that ladies were talking about partner support. It is extremely important in lowering postpartum depression, along with his support of her breastfeeding. I wanted to get that into the conversation when I heard you all bring that up.
Of course. And just from your experience, Peter, can you talk a little bit more towards your ideas of the way partners should support moms, especially after giving birth?
Well, there are a number of ways. I have a presentation called Breastfeeding Basics for Brothers. And one of the things I encourage is making space available for your partner to breastfeed at home. A lot of times, they want a nice, quiet, meditative space to breastfeed. Provide that for her. Make sure that you are making the home comfortable. You're taking stress off of her for things. Do the dishes. Make sure that you're taking care of the other children if you have them. And there are some simple things that you can do that are going to make you her hero. Often, when a woman is breastfeeding, things like seeing a picture of her baby or hearing somebody else's baby cry will cause a milk letdown, which can be embarrassing if she begins to lactate and it could leak through her bra and stain her blouse. There are pads that you can put into your bra to prevent that from happening. Get some of those. Make sure you put them in her purse, put them in her bag. Make sure she always has some. Drop some in the pocket of her coat. Make sure she's protected at all times. You, as her partner, can do that. Those are very simple ways of being supportive of her and making her breastfeeding journey, your journey as parents together, something that's going to be enjoyable and loving and healthy for the whole family.
Peter, thank you so much for calling in today and bringing in your perspective as a lactation counselor, the first Black male lactation counselor in Michigan. Thank you so much, Peter. And we're going to get back to you, Dr. Johnson. Listening to Peter right now, Peter has a lot of very helpful tips for partners to support a breastfeeding mom. How does support for breastfeeding fit into the ROSE program?
I love everything he just said. That breastfeeding basics for brothers, that is amazing. I think that I don't think we typically explicitly address breastfeeding, but we do ask moms to think through what they want and what they need from their partners. And so a lot of it can be around that. And, I think people, because, the human race has been breastfeeding for thousands of years, just think that it's natural and automatically happens, but it can be really difficult depending on the baby and depending on the mom. It's not entirely straightforward. And so I really love that he has an entire program and tips for, making a relaxing environment where mom and baby can relax and try to breastfeed. That's amazing.
Yeah, so, just switching gears here just a little bit, because I know we're talking about the partners, but I know that you wanted to talk about the importance of the cost-saving measures that this program has, especially when you're seeing it implemented in clinics across the country. You've investigated how bringing these proven interventions to people who need them the most is really, really key at making good financial support research, which it is required by you. Can you just talk a little bit about this ROSE program and how it's saving money in clinics?
Yeah, absolutely. So after all the studies that showed that it was effective and it prevented half the cases of postpartum depression, I led a study with my colleague to implement it and provide technical support to 98 agencies and clinics across the country serving pregnant and postpartum people. And we offered different levels of technical assistance. But in a nutshell, we found that on average, it costs $2,000 to $4,000 in our time for technical assistance and the clinic's time to get the program up and running. But we know from other work that preventing a single case of postpartum depression saves $34,000. And so because it's a pretty low cost intervention, maybe $150 per mom. It's vastly cost effective, and we were able to scale it up clinic-wide, agency-wide across the country for very little money and time.
Yeah, and just thinking about that and hearing that it's such a low cost, how are you seeing this being adopted across the country? Are you seeing a lot of clinics pick it up and using it?
We are.
Yeah.
I would say that the challenge, and it's kind of interesting because in some ways, we're doing better in settings that aren't explicitly medical settings. A lot of the medical settings do it because it's the right thing to do. But right now, the billing codes, insurance and Medicaid billing codes, aren't set up well for prevention just in general. I'm a mental health provider, right? When I see somebody, I have to provide a diagnosis code. Well, your obstetrician can see a pregnant person, do preventive care, and bill it under a pregnancy diagnosis code. As a mental health provider, I can't bill under a pregnancy diagnosis code. And actually, you can deliver ROSE without even being licensed. And so we've been trying to work with, especially here in Michigan, Medicaid and other areas to provide a clear billing path. But like I said, it's ironic because it's a very low cost intervention that doesn't even require, like, health educators can do this, doulas can do this. We've had WIC offices do this. And yet by its very flexibility, it challenges the billing structure a little bit.
And before we do let you get out of here, I do want to talk about just the future of the goal or the program Rose itself, because I know that we've seen some cuts to funding, federal funding cuts. Do you see that limiting the program at all or limiting its expansion?
I don't think so. I mean, I think cuts to Medicaid are going to hurt moms just generally, actually. And they are right now, it's tied up in the federal budget discussion, but cuts to a program called Healthy Start that provides wraparound support for pregnant people and postpartum people. That will definitely hurt moms. So I think that there will be challenges for the pregnancy landscape generally, but aside from that, I don't think so. We're actually, right now, the recommendation nationally is to give Rose to pregnant people that are at risk for postpartum depression. But one of the things we found as we rolled it out across the country was that we can't always tell who's at risk. So right now we're doing a large study that hopefully will change the recommendation to be that Rose should be offered to everyone. That study is, people are interested, it's www.rosemom.org. And it's a large, like I said, a large national study evaluating whether we should change the recommendation to be everyone should at least be offered Rose.
Dr. Jennifer E. Johnson is a professor of obstetrics and gynecology and behavioral health at Michigan State University. She is also the lead researcher for the Rose program. Dr. Johnson, thank you so much for joining us on the Metro today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Coming up, an experimental art theater in Detroit is moving into a permanent home on the city's west side. My conversation with the founder and director of A Host of People is coming up next. You all stay right there. This is The Metro.